This is the slightly revised Southern Pacific AC-12 pilot model by Key, an O-scale model that has been filmed before, but now it has the complete sound system, as you can hear in the background with the correct AC air pumps sounding off. It's got the electronic system in it that I designed in order to be compatible with both DC and DCC. This is quite different from most sound system and DC system installations. In this case, there is no compromise at all. Both systems are completely independent of each other, and the owner chooses which one to run by the plug between the engine and the tender. He simply puts it in one socket or the other in order to run a completely uncompromised DC system that's completely compatible with other DC engines, so you don't have to get up in the 5 to 7 volt range before the thing will start moving. If you put it in the other socket, you have a completely uncompromised DCC system with a Tsunami sound system on top of that. So the thing is really two complete electronic systems in one. Neither one of them the least bit compromised in terms of its characteristics. The lighting has all been installed in it so that you can now see as I turn the headlight on, you get headlight, class lights, number boards, and if you want to see all the nice detail in the cab, you can turn the cab lights on as they now are. We'll take a closer look at that in a little while. In addition to that, there is the stack density light back by the stack. When I turn that on, you can see it back by the Worthington feedwater heater. That also comes on and off independently. The whine and the rotary sound that you hear is the dynamo sound from the Tsunami. That starts up as soon as the lighting comes on, so if I turn the headlights off, you'll stop hearing that. It goes back to just a background sound. Now we'll turn the lights back on, and again you hear the dynamo sound off. The whistle is the actual Southern Pacific 6-chime freight whistle on the Tsunami AC-12 decoder. The electronics are set up so that you can also run an air horn if you prefer, and they did use the air horn a lot on these. The bell, it's a fast ring rate reflecting the automatic bell ringer that was standard on these engines. Other sounds that are available to you on the Tsunami are things like the blow off, you can, before starting up, you can release the air brakes. When it's time to take water, you hear the tender hatch flop back and the water start running. When you're done taking water, you just press F9 again, and the hatch closes. There's also a coupler crash that you can use for coupling up. If you get really good at it, you can make that sound happen just as the engine couples into a string of cars. There are random sounds that also happen after the engine stops running, and those can be altered somewhat by probability changes on CVs and stuff like that. Anybody can download the Tsunami instructions and figure out how to modify all that. So let's listen to the thing run for a bit. Before we start running, I should point out a couple of things that you should be looking for. One is that this engine has independent motors. There are two motors, one driving each of the engines under the cab. So this front engine has one motor, the rear engine has a separate motor. As the engine runs, the independent sound cams on those two engines will go in and out of sync just like the real thing. So from time to time you'll hear it making 4 beats per revolution. Other times it'll be making 8 beats per revolution and alternating between the two as it goes in and out of sync just like the real thing. Also notice that this engine now has the completely hollow axles. Those are hollow all the way through. You can look right through those axles and see it. So we're going to take off now. Of course, you release the air brakes. You blow the whistle twice. Start ringing the bell. Engine back into our field of view and bring it to a halt. Listen for the sound of the brake squeal. It's set up so that if you stop it fairly quickly, the brakes will squeal just like the real thing. It sounds so great starting in the tunnel where you get a lot of reverb and all. I'm going to show you what it sounds like that way. We'll go ahead and run it out of here and then show a couple of other things. As you can see, when the lights are off, the number boards look like they should. White letters and numbers against a black background. That's the way they looked during the daytime when the lights didn't show up much. And the white was actually frosted glass. In the past, a number of people have made models with clear numbers, but that doesn't look very realistic because they really showed up as white with no lighting on, and then they were transparent white at night. So when they're off, you can see here that they have the correct appearance. Then when I turn the lights on, the light shines through all those white areas and you have the properly illuminated number boards. In addition to that, the cab lights, which I'll turn on now, will show you the whole cab interior. It'll be a little more spectacular once we have paint and lettering and all that sort of thing inside there, but it will allow you through those large cab windows to see all the nice detail inside the cab. The sound you hear right now is the injector running. There it cut off. That's one of the random sounds, or you can even control that one manually if you prefer. We're going to run this engine over the trestle now, and notice how when you're first accelerating, the exhaust note is louder, then it stabilizes out as it reaches speed. The blower is running at the present time. And that was the sound of the pop valves going off as the blower got everything hot. So now we're ready to go. Release the air brakes. Whistle off. Now that I have it in a nice light spot, we're going to swing around over to the rear, turn the power off, and I'll show you how easy it is to switch over to straight DC. To switch the engine from DCC to DC, the thing you do is to move the plug between the engine and the tender. All you do is flip the gangway up so that you can see the plug. This is the plug right here. It's a 12-pin plug. Just grab it and pull it out of the top row, and you move it down to the second row. Push it back in, flip the gangway back, and now it's set up for DC running. Now that we've hooked the engine up for straight DC, you'll see how it behaves on that. As I bring the voltage up slowly, you can see that the lights come on before the engine starts to move. And in this case, all the lights come on before the engine starts to move, including the stack density light, the cab lights. In straight DC, of course, you don't have control over individual lights, so in straight DC they all come on. But they all come on before the engine starts to move, and then the engine takes off. Of course, the backup light on the tender works the same way. So as you bring the voltage up, the backup light comes on when you have it set for reverse, and then the engine starts running. As you can see, you can just leave the engine sitting with the lights on the same way you do on DCC. It'll just sit there illuminated at a few volts, and then when you're ready to run, you just increase the voltage and it'll begin to take off. We'll just watch it snake through the curves and switches real quickly before we go back to DCC and all that nice sound. Show you again how relatively easy it is to shift from one mode to another. It's currently sitting in DC, as that's what we were just running. I'm going to now convert it over to DCC. Again, all we do is flip the gangway up so that we can see the connector. It's kind of hard to believe that that actually contains 12 connection wires, but it does. So all you have to do is pull that out. You can see the pins coming out. Move it up to the top connection. Plug it back in. Flip the gangway over. And you're all set for DCC operation. Now that we're back on the DCC in sound mode, you can again hear the sounds of the locomotive sitting there idling with the air pumps running. That distinctive whistling exhaust of the air pumps on an AC. This decoder was specially designed for Southern Pacific cab forwards that have that open air exhaust on the air pumps. So it's quite realistic. The whistle and the horn both are very nice reproductions of SP sounds. You again have all of the individual controls, so when I turn the headlights on, all the front end lighting comes on, and I also can turn on the stack density light back there by the Worthington feed water heater at the rear. And of course, if it happened to be night or whatever, you might want the cab lights on, but at any rate, you can see those in order to see all the detail inside there. Then we can get ready to take off by releasing the air brakes. Whistling off. Or with the air horn if we prefer. Start ringing the bell and start off.